Welcome to today's workshop on master's applications in education and related fields. Very quickly, I will tell you a little bit about EduAccess and then introduce you to your panelists. And then they will take over and talk to you about the various aspects of doing a master's in education in universities abroad, covering things like what does the course look like, how is it assessed, how do you pick your country, how do you pick a university, what are some of the things to keep in mind when you're making the application, and then give you some general tips on the application itself. Um, we at Project EduAccess, we believe that access to higher education, leadership, and professional opportunities is a privilege that most people from marginalized communities are systematically denied through cost, information, and dispositional barriers. And we try to improve inclusivity in these spaces by removing some of these barriers for marginalized communities in the global south. We do this by 4 key interventions: mentoring, counseling, role modeling, information advice, guidance, capacity building and leadership skill development, and evidence-based advocacy. One of the things that we do is run capacity building online workshops, such as the one that we're doing today. And we have with us two really wonderful panelists who help us do the work that we're doing. Both of them have also been part of EduAccess in some capacities as mentees. And so we're so happy that now they're on this side talking to you about doing a master's abroad. We have with us Shireen, who just completed her MSc in education, higher education from University of Oxford. And we have with us Shishu, who's currently doing an MSc in education and social justice from Birkbeck University of London. I think between the two of them, they speak English and Hindi. And if you want to ask your question in a language other than English, please feel free to do so. So thank you, Shireen and Shishu, for joining us today. And I will hand it over to you, Shishu.
Uh, Thank you, Misbah, for wonderful start and my introduction. So yeah, I'll start with just giving the context my introduction. So earlier I have done uh, MA in education and I have done teacher training as well. So why I got interested in education? So I'll just try to bring my positionality from being an educator and why I'm interested in masters in education and why I'm doing this specific course MSc Education and Social Justice. So yeah, it will help other applicants to choose to pick up specific MA or MSc in education courses, whether it is in UK, US, or any other country. And specifically in these countries, as far as we know that the courses are interdisciplinary where different disciplines intersect together and see education as a contested field. It means education is the most contested field everywhere in the world because, wherever in any country, the political situation, the social condition changes. Education is education is being controlled by the political or economic system. So that would be helpful to understand why we should pick up some specific courses based on your choices, based on your understanding, based on your previous background. And yeah, it would be helpful for a better career and maybe who are interested in activism in education or maybe want to try to contribute to democratize education in global south, especially in Indian context where people from marginalized communities are not getting access to a good education. So here in education, master's program in education explores a lot of different intersections, different perspectives. So as for example, it uh, explores the public policies because again education is a big field and public policy uh, public policies are also designed in such a way that education should be accessible to all the people, especially as well as the international relations context as well, because we know that research is such a, I mean, researches are conducted to fill the gap when globalization is at the peak and specific skills is needed to be inculcated in the people of different countries so that they can become an international citizen. So yeah, there are multi dimensional approach to education. So similarly, yeah, globalization, law, technologies, AI, each and everything are emerging in this current scenario. So yeah, I mean, we can see education through multiple perspectives. That's why there are specific courses in these universities. I mean, universities of UK, US, Canada, I mean, wherever you'll go. In India, these, I mean, courses specific to specific fields are emerging slowly now. So yeah, I mean, uh, Indian institutions are somehow trying to copy. I mean, I won't say copy, but yeah, they are learning from these global north, and they are bringing these kind of courses. So if you are doing this course, it means, I mean, there are multiple political, social, and economic perspective to that. I won't go into the details, but yeah, I mean, these countries are advanced in such a way, and countries like us, they are trying to follow these things. Whether it is wrong or right, I won't go into that. Yeah, and these degrees prepare for careers in school teaching. But if you want to go to the school teaching, they have a specific training program. So, as for example, in India, there are teacher training programs. If you want to do masters in education in these countries, so for school teaching you need to go to a specific course. If you want to go into the policies and you want to work with NGOs, then again you will find different courses that we'll talk in details. If you want to work with the government or maybe higher education bodies, so I mean, when Shireen will talk about her journey, you will get to know that she's working with the international organizations, policy based approach here she's bringing. Other than that, there would be some programs they may focus on a specific areas like inclusive education, how to bring people who have special educational needs, I mean, who are the students with physical disability. So yeah, you can pick up that learning technology, emerging AI in education, something like that. And yeah, obviously education policy. So can we move ahead with the slide? So, I mean, just an overview. Typically in UK, the master's course is of 1 year. But I mean, there are some specific courses you need to check on the website of different universities. They may have 2 years of masters, but typically it is 1 year in UK. In US, you'll find a master's degree of 2 years uh, in Canada as well. So if you want to plan to come to UK, then it will be of 1 year, and for US and Canada, it is of 2 years. Again, as you can see over on the slide, core and elective modules. So I mean, in your university as well, there would be core courses and elective courses. So generally, core courses will depend upon uh, the course that you're taking, the specific area that you are taking. So, as for example, I'm doing education and social justice. So, it is linked with the inequalities in education policy making, how government is shaping education policies. So, I have education power and resistance, globalization and education. So it will depend what kind of course you are picking up. And whenever you are picking up any course, just go through the core modules, as well as, I mean, you will have a choices of optional module, but go through the core modules, what they are trying to bring. And yes, learning objectives, obviously, what you want to learn. So you need to take specific, pick up your specific need, what you want to do in future career. If you are interested in research, then you need to pick some courses where it involves research methods in education or educational research, uh, something like that. So you need to pick up specific needs to your demand. As you can see, I mean, there are a lot of oh, 1 second. Just give me a second. Sorry, I got a call. Yeah. So, I mean, again, you need to go through the course website, and you will find each and everything over there. Uh, Research component, yes. I mean, most of the courses in UK and US, I mean, these are designed for the research. So you will find research module in each uh, programs, each degrees of masters. But yeah, it depends. You need to check whether some of the courses may not involve digitation. It means that research module, they'll just do research modules, but they will not have compulsory digitation. So you need to check whether you are interested in research or not. If you're interested in research, then yes, you need to pick up something which will have dissertation. Again, as I have added that program in education will vary depending on university, departments. Some departments will be more radical towards inequality. Some departments will be based on technology trends, something like that. So, what do you want to do? Just you need to see and you need to observe from that perspective. Next. Here in UK, you'll find, I mean, nomenclature is quite bit different because in India, you will find MSc with natural sciences or subjects which comes under sciences. I mean, pure sciences kind of thing. But in UK, you will find MSc in social sciences as well. So don't be confused with MA or MSc in education. It will, I mean, it also depends on the universities what kind of approach they are taking. If they are taking scientific approach in social sciences, I mean, more scientific, inclined towards scientific approach. I mean, they are focusing on uh, uh, the research with uh, a very sophisticated research approach. Then, I mean, it may be MSc, but I mean, don't get into the nomenclature of all these things. But yeah, you need to just see what they are providing in the modules and something like that. So as I mean, it is mentioned in the slide that MA basically focuses more on theoretical and philosophical approach, whereas MPhil is more towards research. So as we know, in India, MPhil is closed, but here MPhil courses are still there. So they will focus more on research. I mean, they will prepare you for the research to pursue doctorate degree in that context. Uh, uh, yeah, and the title of degree will also, I mean, it reflects the program's focus, which area they are focusing. So as for example, I'm doing education and social justice, so it is more focusing on social justice aspect, how policies can be made for the larger and broad level of people who don't have access to uh, basic things, or simple, I mean, basic education system. So how these things can be contributed to the people, as well as how education uh, should not prepare, I mean, should not reproduce the inequality that is existing in the society. So my course is taking more critical approach. My course is taking more more political approach, that the education, I mean, how education reproduces inequality, but it should not. So yeah, it will depend on the courses. So as for example, I mean, Shireen will talk about higher education, that MSc education in higher education. So I don't have much idea about it, but you'll get to know how these things work. Similarly, there is one MSc educational research. So I had the offer letter from Edinburgh, University of Edinburgh, MSc educational research. So I'm interested in research, I mean, educational research. So yeah, they'll prepare for you for how to conduct research in the area of education, because education is such a big diverse field. You can research in the curriculum, teachers practices, how students think about it, how society think about the education, how policymakers think about this education. So I mean, all these different specific things will come into your plate. Now you need to pick up specific thing. Similarly, at UCL, MSc Education International Development, so they'll take more international developmental approach and how education can be used as a tool to for the development of specific countries, and they will also take comparative approach, as like how global south education system is existing right now, how global north education system is existing, something like that. Yeah, and yeah, some programs, it takes interdisciplinary approach, combining education with other fields like learning sciences, psychology, cognitive side of education, and something like that. I mean, technology, equity in education. So again, you need to just go through the website, what they say, what is their learning objectives, what kind of modules they are preparing, what are the reading list, And I mean, one good thing I found with UK universities, if you email the program director or program lead, you can ask them for reading list as well. So I mean, they won't give each and everything, but they may provide that this is the specific reading list you need to do. So you will get the overview what you are going to study. uh, yes, next. uh, so yeah, I mean, assessment is I mean, not you'll find a bit different, but not that so different. It will depend. I mean, you will have coursework through essay. They can give you something assignment kind of thing, case studies, group projects. So it is all the blend of each and everything. Like there may be exams, there may be essays, assignment, group work, presentation, some kind of analysis to some work. They'll ask you to write reflective essays. It may be curriculum design. So yeah, I mean, they bring multi perspective, different perspectives in one section, and I mean, you will have the choices to do a lot of things. uh, I mean, for my course there is no examination, but it depends. I mean, university to university, course to course, what they want to do. They may ask you for critical analysis to any specific policy. They may ask you to write a reflective essay on education system of your country, and they might ask you for comparative analysis between two education systems, whether it is, I mean, with the might be British education system, US education system, like that. uh, yeah, research thesis and dissertation. Again, generally all the master's course, they have dissertation, and in the last one or two terms, oh, sorry, I'm just confused. So in the last term, there will be dissertation. I mean, you have to do the dissertation part. So in two terms, I have modules, core modules and optional modules. In the last term, I have the dissertation module. So I'll totally focus on dissertation. And again, it will depend upon the area that you want to take. So for example, it is written that a thesis on the impact of digital tools in primary education at UCL, Institute of Education. I want to work in the area of teacher education. So maybe I'll take something like social justice in teacher education program. So again, you will have the choice. It will depend on your interest area. And if you want to do PhD, you can build from that specific dissertation. And if you're interested in publishing a paper, so I mean, your professors will help you in that. Presentation and seminars, yes, it is the most important part here in UK. I mean, not only in UK, in all these uh, specific countries. So you have to do prior readings, you have to participate in seminars, discussion. You need to present what you will be asked, or maybe you will get something like your choice area, what you want to present. There might be field works and practical assessments. So for me, I don't have anything like that, but yeah, it depends on the course to course. As for example, at University of Birmingham in AMA education, they have something like action research. So if somebody is, have done the teacher education programs in India, they will have uh, action research. They will understand the action research and everything. Yeah, next. Okay, so the thesis part, I mean, the dissertation part, again, as earlier I discussed already, that it will up to your choice, and you can bring interdisciplinary approaches as well. So I have done my master's in chemistry earlier, so I will try to bring, I mean, I'll research on science education, but I'll bring educational research something. So I'll try and I'll bring scientific approach as well as the social sciences approach to science education. So again, you will have the opportunity to what you want to do, and how, again, at some, I mean, in some projects you can bring your practical application as well, like how you are going to apply, and how you can collaborate with the schools, NGOs, education focus organizations, they are working on education. So yeah, I mean, you will have the opportunity whether you want to uh, you want to carry your thesis from theoretical approach, or you want some practical approach too. So given the length of your course, given the opportunity, feasibility of the course, you can bring multiple perspective. uh, yeah, I mean, as earlier I told that not all the programs, master's program includes such a thesis component. Might have something core extended coursework, internship, project based assessment. So you need to just check with how the course design is. Next. Yes. So how to pick up your specialization again? It's a very challenging task because uh, not challenging, but if you are clear with your focus area, if you're clear with your research question or what you want to do in later career, then it will be easier for you to pick up. So earlier I was interested in science education and in teacher education. So but I wanted to bring social justice approach. That's why I pick up picked up this course. Uh, so again, you need to analyze yourself, your previous journey. As for example, I mean, if you don't have previous background to something, I mean, in science, and right now you are interested in science, so it will be difficult for you. But again, it will depend on uh, which area you want to work, and how how much you are ready to learn. So pick up very wisely so that it will not be uh, uh, a difficult choice in that. Again, themes. As for example, earlier, I mean, when I was looking for the courses abroad, I clearly looked for education and social justice. I just picked up education and social justice as keyword, and I searched all these courses related to that. And then after, I checked all these education and social justice programs in UK. More than that, I was interested in how education reproduces inequality in the society, in the countries, and how education is becoming contested, how political power plays a role in education. And that's why I picked up this course. So again, it is linking with the learning outcomes of the course, and how it will help me in my future research. So yeah, this is how you can uh, pick up the course. Now I think over to Shireen.
Yeah. Thank you, Shishu. That was really very insightful. Hello, everyone. I'm Shireen. A little about myself for context purposes and might help you like with Q&A in case you want to ask something particular to what I do. Um, so I graduated with an MSc in higher education from Oxford this October, last October apparently now. And after that, I worked with UN Academic Impact on Millennium Fellowship. So MCN and UN Academic Impact run this fellowship in the higher education sector to cultivate leadership qualities around sustainable development goals. Um, did that for a few months. Now, starting Jan, I've been working with Oxford's Department of Politics and International Relations, again on a leadership development program called the Oxford Character Project. My point being, so Shishu is more, inclined towards the academics of it, the research part of it. You can ask me more about perhaps the policy or the admin side of it. So education work that's related more to admissions, equity, which is like particularly my field, and also around policy making and working with like NGOs, think tanks, things like that. So that's what I do. That's what my background is. Um, so quickly getting into, so I'd be talking to you about choosing the university and choosing the country that you want to go for your higher education. And then I'm going to move into like a more generalist idea of what the application procedure looks like. Starting off, I do think choosing your university and choosing the country that you go to are two very intertwined things. So you need to think about both of them simultaneously, but I will cover them one by one. Um, so to begin with, honestly, internet is your best friend. Like any resource and anything you want to search about where to apply. I mean, for a lot of you, this is like a period when you start thinking about, what's my pool of universities, which five, six, 10, however many universities you want to apply to. Am I applying to, right? This is where you start thinking about all these bullet points one on one, and then you figure out what works best for you. Um, to take you through some of the things to consider while choosing your university, I think you need to think about very carefully what exactly it is within the education field that you want to study. Because, like as Shishu mentioned earlier, it's very vast. So there's quite a big variety of courses. And if I had to segregate both of them into, like, two types of courses, there would be courses that are very heavy on research, on methodology, uh, and on like teaching practices. So these are courses that essentially train you to become an academic or a teacher, or both. And then there's a second category, so to speak, of courses which are more inclined towards issues of, politics, access, equity, policy, administration. So those are more around the area of policy making and education, and the first category is more around research and teaching, right? So you need to have a clear idea of where you want to get into, or like, of course, why you're choosing to study what you're studying. And then even between the two categories there's segregation. So like specifically you can choose, like she did social justice between like the courses on equity and access. So just having a clearer idea of what your specialization should be, you can start out broad, look at the two categories, and then figure out if you're able to find courses which very specifically meet what you're trying to do. And given like the broad breadth of courses available in education, I am quite confident that you'd be able to find something that, if not fully, but like very closely aligns to what you're trying to do. Um, Very closely associated with that is the faculty expertise. Again, you've done your undergrad, now you're moving towards something that's more specialized, more specific to your research or your professional interest. And a good way of looking into courses is to figure out what faculty in the university website or department website that you're looking at, what are they researching on? Because chances are whatever the faculty is researching, or whatever the main themes that the university or the department works in, is what would be a heavy material in the course that you're doing. So just having an idea of what expertise you find. So for me specifically, I'm very interested in structures and systems within higher education, particularly admissions. And Oxford has a lot of good faculty who are working on the same. So just aligning your interests with a faculty member, a professor, a potential supervisor in an institution. Just looking at that beforehand, I think is really good. Speaking of, again, facilities and networks go hand in hand with reputation and ranking, right? So while reputation and ranking is not everything, it's a good starting point to begin understanding what kind of expectations you can have of an institution. If you look at very high ranking institutions, they would ideally have a better teaching quality, better research facilities, more chances of funding, more chances of applying to conferences, more research centers, labs, things like that. So just figuring out what kind of resources do you need? Do you need funding for research? Do you need specific guidance from a faculty member? So just looking at facilities and networks. And a good way of doing that is to go on QS or Times Higher Education ranking websites and just seeing which universities are good and higher ranked in which country for the course that you're looking at. Um, and last but not the least, looking at regional and thematic strengths. So again, while some universities offer courses which are very broad and like global in their outlook, a lot of courses would also be very specific to the region that you're studying in. So maybe if you go study at Sydney, it might be that some of the courses they offer are very specific to issues and perspectives of education which are particular to Australia. So just looking at what your interest is, what specific region or thematic strand the university or the course is focusing on. Um, which brings me to the next slide. Misbah, if you could just move to the next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So choosing your country again goes hand in hand with the university. About this, I think just a few points to keep in mind is, what are you going abroad for? In simple words, just why do you want to study in a specific country? Like, obviously goals change, and like as in when you get, exposure abroad, it changes how you think about things. That's the point, I guess. But just having an idea of like what your end goal is, like are you going abroad just to study and then come back home and take a job, or start to study further in your home country? Is it that you're going abroad to do that degree and then maybe apply for a DPhil there or somewhere else? Are you going to another country to, do the course and then take up a professional job in that country itself? So I think how you think about choosing your country goes aligns really well with why are you going abroad in the first place. So just, I mean, honestly, choosing your course and choosing your university starts with a lot of introspection about what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do that thing. So like just looking at, say, if I talk about the UK, right? You need to think about just what prospects come later after a degree. So just looking into things like how much time commitment are you giving? For US, like mentioned earlier, it's 2 years. For UK, it's a year. So just looking at how much time you need to devote, looking at what maybe if you want to take a job, what the job perspectives or the economic market looks like a little in that country. Maybe, I mean, again, this is like a far off thing, but might help decision making is like what the visa situation or like what the after my course is done situation looks like. Um, Again, funding varies greatly between countries. Just looking at what country offers what kind of funding. Again, I mean, I do know quite a few people who don't choose a country, who just choose universities that align with their interests, and then they apply to multiple countries. So another question you need to ask yourself while applying is, what's more important to you? Is it the country that you're going to study in, or is it like the university or the specific course? If I talk about myself, to me, coming and studying in the UK was also higher up in my, priority list. I had previous experience studying in the UK. I wanted to continue with that. So just figuring out what your priorities are and then choosing countries accordingly. Many people do apply to multiple countries, and it's not that important to them which country the university is in, as long as it aligns with their course, as long as it's helping them advance their career and their academics. Yeah, next slide, please. All right. I mean, coming to the elephant in the room, really, is what the components of the application process look like. Again, as you know, they vary from course to course, university to university. But to give you a general, generic idea of what it looks like, first would be your academic records. I mean, you're applying for an academic degree. The first thing they want to look at is how you've been performing in your university. Probably not how, like in your high school, but like mostly your undergrad. So just having your transcripts ready. In a lot of cases, I mean, with the Oxford admission cycle, I know particularly, you don't have your final grades while you're submitting or making an application. In those cases, you submit whatever transcripts or academic records you have till date, and then you hear back from the university with what it's called conditional offer, which means that you're given like, hey, you can come study in our university as long as you get XYZ grade as your final grade in the degree that you're doing. So for a lot of universities, if I speak on like a GPA perspective, it would be around something between say 2.8 to 3.3 on 4. Usually, in my experience, the cutoff that the offer asks you for is not that high or that tough to meet. So if you just apply with whatever records you have, and you hear back positively, it's good to go. But that's just something to keep in mind, that you don't apply with your full results. You apply with like your provisional or like just timely results that you have in at that point of time, and then you go on from there. Another thing that I want to stress on generally, I know Shishu mentioned it, but for education courses, again, in India, from what I know specifically, there's not that huge a culture of like doing an undergraduate degree in education. So like most people in South Asia who I know who come to do a master's in education don't really have a background in undergraduate education. For me, my background in undergraduate was politics and international relations. My point being, it doesn't really matter what background you have previously in your undergrad to apply for a degree in education. In some fields, you need that alignment. Like for an English master's, you probably should have like an English undergrad, from what I know. But like in education, it doesn't really matter as long as you're doing decently in whatever it is that you're doing in your undergrad, it should be fine. Next up, and personally, I think this is like the make or break of any application. Because what happens, honestly, is when you apply to a university, almost everybody who's applying to that university is meeting the set, the cutoff, so to speak, of the academic record that they're asking for. So if you're applying to, say, LSE, chances are that everybody else who's applying also has almost similar grades. That's not to say that grades don't matter, they do, but they're not the make or break of your application, is what I'm trying to say. What I do think really matters is your statement of purpose, or your academic statement particularly, because this is honestly a chance for you to represent yourself on paper, or like a Google Doc, I guess. Like just letting them know three things. I think of a personal statement as like a cycle with like three components. One is, so thinking of education particularly, right? One is, why are you interested in doing what you're proposing? Like why you're interested in pursuing the course, or the university that, like, what got you interested in education? Like, what drives you? Why are you trying to pursue it, right? This is more personalized in that sense. I think for an academic statement or a personal statement at a master's level, this is the more personal component specifically, where you talk about maybe like a experience, something that happened in your childhood, something you've seen in society, something that got you interested in pursuing the degree that you want to pursue, right? So that would be one. Second would be linking it to what are you doing about it right now. So, okay, like for example, I had a childhood experience that got me very interested in equity in admissions. So, like how to navigate the politics of merit and privilege in elite institutions. So that's my area of interest. Then I connected to what I have been doing previously and presently to pursue that interest, right? That is to show A, that you're self-aware of what your interest is, and B, connecting it to action in the sense that you understood what your interest is, and now you've been trying to pursue it actively. It's to show that kind of drive to that you've already been working on your interests, right? Then thirdly, linking it to how the course that you're applying for, and to some extent the university, or like a faculty member, or a research center in that university, how is it going to help you further that interest? So in some sense, I mean, very roughly, it could literally be past, present, and future. Like I would say, in my experience, that's like a good way to approach your personal statements, just being like that, hey, this is what I'm interested in, this is why, this is what I'm doing to further that interest, and this is how your university or your course is going to help me build up on that. And just very quickly, speaking of the last part, I think it's very important to have a very clear idea of what the course is, what like the course structure is, who the faculty are, or what do they specialize in, if there's any specific research centers or research groups that you're interested in working on. Just letting the person reading your SOP know that it's not an SOP that you've sent to every university you applied for, that you've kind of customed or like tailored it to that university, and to let them know that I mean, you don't have to, but like for them to feel that you kind of know what you're trying to do. So just having that clear idea of what you want from that university and why, I think is a good specification to have. So just being a little specific about why that course and why that university. And third would be obviously your CV. Again, for those of you who've been working in professional settings after your undergrad, an academic CV for a master's application might look slightly different. It just slightly, focuses more on if you do have any research experience, any publications, you don't have to, but if you do, it's good. Um, and like talking about more of your academic strengths as opposed to being very heavy on like your professional strengths. They're not separate, but like just taking a more academic tone on your CV. And again, Misbah and everybody at EduAccess do wonderful jobs at guiding people how to create academic CVs and CVs specifically for specific courses, and for different countries and different universities. So yeah, they could give you very like great insight on that. So yeah, the next slide, please. Yeah. Um, Speaking of LORs, so you need for most universities, I do know they need academic references, which means that you just go to a former professor, a current professor, somebody who's taught you, and ask them to submit one for you. Um, a good idea to approach that is to go to somebody who can like vouch for your academic abilities, like who can say that I had this student and this student did well in my class because of XYZ strengths, and this is why I think they're going to be a good addition to your university or your cohort. Um, and if there's one thing I have to say about LORs is just start early, because most academics take time. They, you need to convince them. There's a lot of back and forth on email. So if there's one thing I would say is to just start early with like figuring out who you're going to approach for your LORs and reach out to them, or like discuss with them what your interests are, and like just maybe meeting them, or like over a Zoom call or in person, and just discussing your interests if possible, because that makes your LOR more personalized, and that kind of gives them a clear idea what to write when they're watching for you in an LOR. um so samples for writing, again, this is not something that I think most universities ask for, uh, but in case they do, it's always a good idea to submit something that, if possible, links a little to what you're applying for. Again, it's not mandatory. I mean, what they want to see essentially is how you think and how you write. And most of them are not too strict about like what topic you're choosing, or if that topic is even in like the education sector. But if possible, if you have the time or like a previously written sample, it's always a good idea to submit something which does correlate to what you're applying for. If you do have time, maybe you can try like what I did specifically. I didn't really have many things written on education because that wasn't what my undergrad was in. But I had the time, and like a good way to approach it perhaps would be to just pick out a contemporary book on anything that relates to you in the field of education and writing a book review, or like picking out an essay and writing a book review, or like a review for that. That just allows you to like engage critically, but also tell the professors that you are able to engage with a piece of writing and figure out what its strengths and so to say weaknesses are. So yeah, that would be a good idea. Speaking of standardized test scores, if you're applying to the US, you may require to give the GRE. Sometimes there's waivers. Sometimes some universities don't ask for a GRE, which is great. But if they do, again, knowing the requirements so you can take the tests well in time, so you don't miss out on like an application deadline. So just knowing that structure of what the requirements are beforehand and planning it accordingly so you don't miss out on like any test day or like a deadline, right? um Again, for non-native English speakers, there's the English proficiency scores that you need to submit with your application. I do know these days it's become relatively easier to kind of get a waiver on the English language course. So if you have an undergraduate degree in an institution that has, English as its medium of instruction, you can apply for a waiver. It's essentially just getting like an email from your registrar or somebody in like your undergrad office being like, English is our medium of instruction, and then applying to that university, letting your potential university admin team know that you might be eligible for a waiver. That just saves you, another test that you need to give. That's what I did, but yeah, so just knowing also whether or not you can apply for a waiver whether or not you do need to take an English language test. So yeah, that's, I think, in terms of the application process, that's what it looks like. If you could go to the next slide, please. All right, of course, why we're trying to study, right? Career prospects. So again, I do strongly believe that the degree that you do these days is not a direct determinant of what career you can get into. It's more about what you learn and like what your interests are, and not like what exactly your degree says on paper. So again, when we talk about career prospects, please know these are like in no way limited or like binary. It's just like from trends and from like people we know, this is what it looks like for people who are in our fields. Um, Again, like I said before, there's two or three categories of what people get into after a degree in education. So you could get into teaching, of course, right? So teaching is, you can choose a subject that you specialize in, like say English, and then you specialize in English teaching, or you take a diploma in teaching and then enter like subject of English in a high school or like a primary school, wherever you want to teach, right? There's teaching fellowships. Obviously, there's Teach for India, there's Teach for All. You can, work as a teacher under a bigger organization that doesn't necessarily have to be a school, right? So that's one. Second would be curriculum development, which would be basically coming up with changes in present curriculums, changes in textbooks, helping in writing textbooks, helping in designing textbooks, or syllabus for different levels and different boards. That's second. Third would be consulting, which is basically helping either the government or the private sector, foundations, NGOs, with problems and issues that arise in their day to day. So it's just like consulting in any other field. It's just you're consulting particularly about issues and challenges in an educational setting. Um, and last would be education administration and policy making. That's the field that I have gotten into post my degree. It's basically helping in like the day-to-day functioning of higher education institutions, and like helping out with their policy ideation, with their brainstormings and things like that. And graduates, more often than not, also are very interested in working with international organizations, or just departments which are functioning at a macro level and looking at challenges and policies that way. So yeah, again, this is like career prospects obviously depend on the job market and depend on what your interest is and what you're looking at. But ideally, it would be teaching, policy making in whatever capacity, consulting, or international organizations. One other thing that I think a lot of people do after a master's in education is further study. So, like, that pathway of becoming an academic, or, a professor, a research assistant, a postdoc later on. So, just that pathway is also open. Like, once you do a master's in education, you can go on to do a DPhil in education if you want to get into academia. So, there's always the idea of coming back to university after you get done with university. So, yeah, that's there. Yeah, I think now we would move towards some general tips, and I would hand it over to Shishu for a bit before I come back. But yeah, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Shireen, for the amazing presentation. Now, I mean, general tips is nothing but yeah, you need to go through the course description very well. I mean, each and every sentence, each and every word matters. This is how I mean I went through it, and I suggested some people whom I guided. Look for specific learning outcome. Yeah, I mean that is most important. What you want to do. I mean, again, if you are clear with your specificity, then yeah, you need to go through the learning outcomes, what they are trying to build, and what kind of I mean, what kind of course they are providing, what they want to do. I mean, they'll come up with the aims and objectives and everything. So yes, yeah, statement of purpose. I mean, review. You just keep writing. Just think. I mean, just see each and every word matters in that SOP, because again, it depends on the university. Some universities will ask for only 500 words essay for your SOP. Some university may ask for one page. So in one page you can bring whatever you want. Some universities will ask for 1200, something like that, 2000 characters. So I mean, you need to pick up each and everything. I mean, what they are saying. If they are saying 500 words, it means 500 words maximum. If they're asking for 2000 characters, it means you need to analyze. 2000 characters means it might be around 600, 700 words. Some university might ask for one page, A4 one page SOP. Again, so it will depend on your, I mean, how smart you are. Like you can increase the, I mean, weights and everything. So that's what I did with the UCL application. They were asking for 2000 characters or one page. So and or I mean basic things. You just go through it and work on your SOP. uh, yeah, knowing the stages, deadlines of the application process well, that is very much important. And I was applying for PhD. I mean, just applying. So I mean, I applied for PhD, and because of some basic concern, I missed the funding deadline. Again, as I'm on fully funded scholarship, and I cannot think of uh, any degree without scholarship. So for me, why I picked up UK, because I was looking for scholarship. I got scholarship. So if you are looking for a scholarship, I mean, fully funded, or I mean, if you can afford 50% or whatever, I mean, it's up to your personal financial circumstances. So you need to be very careful of the stages of, I mean, in Oxford, for Oxford, you have two deadlines. One is for funding deadline, one is for general deadline. So for funding deadline is about to be over. It's 28 or 29 for masters. So be very careful with that. You need to work on that. I mean, what they are saying, they are very particular. They're very, I mean, small technicality may downgrade your application and everything. So yeah, I mean, that's uh, general tips. If you'll have more question, yeah, Project EduAccess is there. You can reach out to us as well. I mean, through multiple channels. Uh, yeah, I think Misbah, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shishu and Shireen. That was really amazing and so comprehensive. So I'm sure the audience benefited a lot. We will now move to the Q&A part of the session. So if anyone has any questions, you can raise your hand and you ask your questions directly to the panelists, or you can put your questions in chat or send it as a DM to either me or to Shireen and um, Shishu. Okay, I have a question in my DM, so I'm just going to read it out loud. I'm in my final year pursuing philosophy and economics, and I'm planning to study courses on education policy related, such as Erasmus Mundus scholarships. Apart from other work and internship experience in education, I only have a little informal experience in teaching and a fellowship where the outcome centered around education in schools. I wanted to ask, since my academic background does not entirely resonate with education, is that a hard eligibility criteria to get into education policy related courses? That too after my undergraduate studies in humanities and social sciences. So anyone, Shishu, Shireen, or both of you?
Shireen, would you like to take it?
Yeah, sure.
You'll be
Uh,
the right person.
Yeah. So again, neither Shishu nor I have a background in education in undergrad. It's quite honestly unheard of in India to do like an undergrad in education. So again, it's not a set expectation at all. In fact, in like the cohorts that I've seen for education, they do value taking in people from different perspectives. Because at the end of the day, if you look at education policy, right? You need people who know their economics, you need people who know sociology or like who are from politics, or because education at the end of the day is not a field, like there's no specific discipline or like a, like a textbook, like, oh, this is what education is specifically for education policies. What I'm saying, it's very intertwined with disciplines in humanities and social sciences. So a lot of things that you will study, a lot of authors that you'll come across in an education policy course would be people who are from backgrounds in sociology, anthropology, politics, economics, philosophy to some extent. So honestly, it's a plus that you have. It's not a minus. Like coming from a background where that makes you more aware of like the challenges and issues, and gives you like a lens to talk about them critically through an academic discipline that's not education, I would say is actually a really good plus to have. So yeah, all the best with the application.
Just to add to your point, so yeah, as Shireen mentioned that I mean you can bring your perspective as well, and how I mean being, as for example, if you're a psychologist or you're I mean you have done your undergrad or postgrad in sociology. So I mean education is the area where, from all the disciplinary perspective we see education. I mean how psychology plays a role. As for example, I did teacher training, so we saw I mean learning and teaching from the perspective of psychology, because learning is a cognitive game. I mean how our I mean my mind learns differently, Shireen's mind will be learning it differently. So all this perspective, but again, as if you are going to pursue education, so try to link from your previous background, that what's your I mean what you aim to do with that course, and how you are fitting for that specific course. Because at the end, the who will be assessing your application, they will try to know, I mean how much you are interested in that area, and if you have any prior experience, that would be really good. So try to link all these things, connecting the dots. If you have done physics, as for example, if you have done physics, then uh, why you want to do education, so that at least you will contribute to the physics field, or how physics plays a role in education, or teaching of physics, curriculum of physics, in physics, how you can bring social justice. So there are multiple things that you can bring. Misbah, I have a question on my chat, direct chat. So the question is about what should be the minimum annual income. So again, annual income, as per I mean coming, if you want to come to UK, you need to show that you will be able to you will be able to give the tuition fee, you will be able to have the basic minimum requirement. As for example, if you want to stay in London, so the minimum monthly requirement is something around 14 or 1300 pounds a month. So if you are coming here for 12 months, then you need to show for the visa requirements, because when you apply to the visa, you need to show all these things, that okay, all the amounts you have in your bank account, or some, if you are funded by any scholarship, so you need to show each and everything. uh, so you need to show it. I mean you should have the evidence to it. uh, Evening scholarship, you just go through the Project EduAccess website, YouTube channels of Project EduAccess. There we have a lot of workshop videos, presentation and everything, so you will get to know about evening. um, for my I mean my course that I'm doing, before coming to London, I didn't spend a single penny. I just spent money on my clothings and everything, nothing else. So right now I'm totally funded, and yeah, I mean even I mean just to tell you that I'm trying to save some money as well. So if you're fully funded, then it would be really good, but it's very competitive. I mean, yeah, you just go through the website, you'll find it. One more question. I mean, sorry, I'm just going through it. I'm taking more time. But another question is about recently I'm pursuing my master's education in ECE. ECE is early childhood education something. This is my first year, so what time I think about research or any education program which will give benefit for me to work in the field of education and foreign universities after ECE course. So, I mean, yeah, it depends. If you want to pursue just after your MA education, I mean, just think about it, or maybe you want some more clarity. So you can work after your MA in education course for a year or two, so that you will get more clarity, you will have more field experience, and maybe if you'll come to foreign university, so you can bring diverse experience. As for example, I worked on Indian education. I worked with one activist-based organization. Uh, I mean, my personal experiences led me to learn more about global experiences on education, inequality, and each and everything. So it was helpful for me just after my another master's at Ajim James University. So yeah, it depends. You just go through it. Uh, I mean, when your mind uh, prepares you for uh, going abroad, and not only mind, the physical, economic, things also matters. So yeah. uh, okay, another one needs to submit two essays of 2000 words each for the application at Oxford in education department. Yeah, writing samples, I think you're talking about. So for someone whose assessment is based on assignments, so as for example, if somebody is from Ajim Premji University, Ashoka, or these kind of universities, you might be preparing a lot of assignments which is based on essays or specific themes. So that will work, but for the words, I mean, the word limit is very particular. You cannot exceed word limit. For my DPhil application, I submitted one sample that was more than 2000 words, and they rejected that sample. I need to resubmit it again, and I'll not be considered for my funding thing. Essays, you can write anything. So again, if you're about to write any essay, try to think of the area that you want to work on. So as for example, Shireen has done MSc education, I mean, MSc in higher education. And if you're interested in that specific course, so try to write some essays that may link to their learning outcomes. Or maybe if you're interested in education and social justice, or AI, or digital area something. So try to write in that way. So I mean, you can write in any way. Otherwise, any assignment may work. They want to check your writing skill, how you argue with a specific topic, how you bring multiple perspective and everything. So yeah.
Yeah. So just to take it from there, I have so I just wanted to quickly answer also, like, when do you start thinking about it question. It's what I've realized is, like, the earlier you think about it, the better, because, like, the more you read and research about, like, what you want to research on when you go to university or you apply for your DPhil, it keeps changing a lot. So, like, just giving yourself that time and space to actually understand what you're going to pitch for, a research degree particularly, and to also know that it's not that set in stone, right? Like, honestly, like, what I applied with, like, what I want to do, all I knew was that I want to do policy related research which focuses on admissions equity. I did not know what sector, what space, like, all of those are things that I discovered as and when I, studied here and, like, read more things, got, more exposure. So just apply with, if you don't have, like, a really really clear idea of, like, what you want to research when you get here, that's totally all right. Honestly, nobody who's, like, in the admissions team really expects you to, like, have this one really engraved idea of, hey, this is what I'm going to do and this is not going to change. The idea is to evolve and change as you read and study. So if you don't have a very clear idea, that's totally okay. You can, explore, and just knowing your interests and being articulate and expressing them, I think, would be enough while pitching, especially for a master's degree. Yeah, so I will just take the raised hand, but before that, I do have a few questions in my DMs. So someone's asking, what topics did I write on for my writing samples, and if I have any tips on how to choose the essay topic. So again, I did a higher education degree. Um, I I did have previous writing samples, but I did not have something that very closely aligned with what I was applying for. So I edited one assignment that I had done for a course at Ashoka. Um, so I wrote something around the Kerala model of human development. That was my first essay. This was more like research based, my own opinions on, like, what I found from my research. So this was more around just balancing, like, economy and education, and how that might work in within, like, the Kerala model of education. That was first. And second, I did not have anything else that was related to education in any ways. So I decided to write, like, a 2000 word essay, like, on my own, without, like, having any assignment or, like, any college related work on that. And for that, like I said earlier, so I chose to do a book review, rather like an article review. So there was this compiled edition of essays on the changing landscape in Indian higher education, which was co edited by one of the faculty at my department, Dr. Simon Martinson, genius. I was very inspired by that essay and I really wanted to critically engage with it. So I wrote that essay, and that's the second writing sample that I submitted. Honestly, was very scared about it because I was engaging with like the work of an academic who was at the department, but I did not think that he would care to read it. But then he interviewed me, so that was like a whole. So just be careful about like what topic you're choosing. But the main thing to just show is that you're interested enough. You're trying to be informed and aware of the issues and challenges, and thirdly that you know a little about what the contemporary work in the field looks like. So just maybe always a better idea to choose a topic or an essay that is more latest than like 1990s. So just being a little topical with your understandings of what you're writing about is what I would say my 2 cents are. Again, without taking a lot of time, another question I have is, are there fully funded scholarships in Oxford University? Um, there are many, but they might feel like a few. So I think you really need to like surf the websites in and out. Like if anything, it's just hours on the internet, knowing what's out there and what you're eligible for and what you need to do and when you need to do to like apply for them. And honestly, EduAccess does a wonderful job in compiling lists of resources of what scholarships are out there, also specifically at Oxford, and also connecting you with scholars who have those scholarships so you can directly, interact with them, ask them questions. So yeah, EduAccess there is your best friend, really. It was mine. So yeah, that's my take on that. And um, last question in my DMs is around, so the ICSE school board, 10th and 12th, do I need to appear for IELTS? For that, so if you're already in an undergraduate degree that teaches in English for 3 years, then you might be eligible for, a waiver on an English proficiency test. But that's something that's very specific from like university to university, and you should just write to the admissions team. And also, generally, a lot of people hesitate to reach out to the admissions team with things. But honestly, if you don't find an answer on the internet or if you can't find anybody else to answer a question, it's always a good idea to write to the admissions team. And just so you know, in most cases, the person who's handling the logistics of information or answering your questions won't be the person who'll be deciding your application. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to send in a question which might come across as like uninformed and that might hurt my application. That doesn't happen. So if there's anything you're confused about, it's always a good idea to reach out to the admissions team. And again, also a second part of that question, you appearing or not appearing for English proficiency tests would not affect your chances of funding at all. Like it's not like if you need an English proficiency test, you'd be less eligible for a funding opportunity. That's really no correlation there, which is great. So yeah.
Can I add something to it? The last one. I think I don't know. I'm not sure. One of my friend was telling me about. I mean, getting funding from Oxford in some of the specific fundings from Oxford. You need to get unconditional offer letter. Uh, I think I'm not sure because previously it happened with one of my friends. So maybe Misbah will.
Sorry, yeah,
Guide you.
I think this is a confusion with Felix Scholarship, where I think on their website they've mentioned something about having an unconditional offer to be considered for the scholarship, but I'm not really sure. But there are a lot of people for whom the English language test is a condition, and I think you still do get considered. If there are internal scholarships, then you're automatically considered, and the department nominates you, so it usually is on the basis that you will receive an offer, and that may or may not be conditional. But other than that, I'm not sure of any scholarships that require you to have taken the English language test. And again, it's always better to ask if you can, get a waiver and then take the test after you have an offer. Yeah, sorry.
Shireen, can you go through one question? Is there general question? It's on. Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
So this is around if like a change in what you're exploring, if I'm understanding this correctly. So you already have a background in edtech and NGOs. That's great. Also very employable. So and now you're exploring international. Da, da, da. Yeah, two questions. Yeah, no, honestly, it doesn't, changing sectors or roles within the education field is not as specific and like, strict as like say engineering or like CS. It's more flexible, more, permeable. So yeah, it's totally all right. As long as you have like the skill set that's needed to do the job, like the eligibility of it, I think it's totally okay to, change fields and like I changed my like very recently I switched from working with mostly undergrad level institutions to now at Oxford working more with postgraduates. So just those switches are totally all right as long as you know how to convince or like pitch yourself for a job to an employer. It doesn't really matter as much as in some other fields. Um, Again, there's another question in my DMs around how to. So this is actually a very important question that I used to be confused with, honestly. So in your education department applications, you're required to manually input details of your work experience, internships, etc. Instead of uploading a CV. Could you guide on how to prioritize what information to include and what to leave out? Yeah. So again, if you're in your third year of undergrad or like already have professional experience, there's going to be a gazillion things on your CV that you worked really hard for and you want to showcase, and you want like an admissions team to know that I've done this, I went to an MUN, I did a debate, I volunteered, I wrote an article. Like you want it to be all out there, right? Because you worked hard for it. You want to showcase that you're interested, invested, right? But I think for applications where there's so many applications that come in, it's always, again, this is my personal opinion, but better to go for quality over quantity. So I would say instead of, because you can add as many additional blocks as you want when you're manually adding your work experience or your CV related stuff. But what I would do, and I've really like realized it after like filling a lot of applications, is that you should go for four, five, max maybe like six things that you have a lot of work to showcase for, as opposed to 10, 12 things with like very little work that you did. So it's always better to put in things where you actually have work to showcase. So like for example, I did the Millennium Fellowship when I was in my second year. This is a United Nations fellowship around sustainable development goals, and I had a decent amount of work to show for that. So I would prioritize things that showcase more about the work, the outcomes that I've achieved, and like the skills that I can display through that, as opposed to putting like 12 things where I don't really have much to do or much to, showcase. So I think that's how I would prioritize it. And within the things that you're, adding manually, I think it's a general practice to do it like chronologically. So you start with where you're working or, volunteering presently, and then going, down from there. So like 2025, 2024, 23, so on and so forth. So yeah, so just choosing things that are important and showcase your work and your work ethic, and then prioritizing adding them like chronologically. Yeah.
See, there is one question on Medium. So I mean, I think I feel it very relevant to me because I did my all schooling stuff in Hindi medium. But after that, I mean, after 10th, I was in English medium. But again, my English is not that so good. So what I did, I mean, I was appeared for IELTS, and yeah, it was somehow average. But if I mean, if you want to do second masters, what's his name? I forgot. Kabir. So if you want to do second masters, and if you have done your graduation and first masters in English, so what you can do, as Shireen earlier mentioned, that you can get one letter from the department or the university that whatever you have done was done in English. Your course, your I mean, language of instruction and assessment was in English, so that may be considered, but again, it is very subjective to universities. Oxford may take it or may not. For me, what I did, I submitted a lot of letters from my previous universities that I did it in English, and at University of Edinburgh, it was accepted. Using that, I got English waiver at UCL. That is very rare. Even if I mean, if somebody is comes from very elite universities of India or any South Asian universities, they don't provide. But I had the leverage of getting chevening. So based on my chevening outcome, they gave me English waiver. So what you can do, you can write them. Okay, TIS, yeah. So I mean, you may get, but again, I don't know about Oxford, because Oxford is very much sophisticated in that way. Even they don't consider if somebody has done masters from Delhi University. Uh, so yeah, I mean, you need to better ask them and just see what, if they are providing or not. And one more thing, if you are working somewhere and you are working and your working language, primary work language is English, so try to get a letter from your employer as well. So it may sometime help you to get waiver. So I mean, use all these opportunities to exploit what they want to, I mean, what they can provide. They will give you some clue every time. If you have something, they may ask you, okay, give me this letter. So yeah, it depends based on your previous experience, previous work, and it would be helpful. Just try to explore, try to decode what they are asking for.
Just to quickly add something to that. So, I mean, Oxford has slightly become better now in the sense that a lot of people I know now do get waivers. Just one thing I would say is leave enough time for yourself in case, like, start by applying for a waiver. In case you don't get it, just leave enough time between an English language test, the results coming, and the application deadline that you have this thing. And in a lot of situations, actually, this is also what I was backing on, is you can take the English language test after you have an offer. So, like, you getting or not getting an offer to a large extent does not depend on like your English language score, really, in the sense that they give you a conditional offer, but then one of the conditions in that offer is that you get, say, 7.0 on an IELTS test, right? So it's, you get an offer before you have an English language test. So honestly, a smart way to go about it is just apply, have like hear back from them. If you get a conditional offer, then apply for either a waiver, or if you don't get the waiver, take the test. But like, that's just a smarter way of just like taking a test and then actually not using it later on. So yeah.
Great. I think those are all of the questions that were in chat, and I don't have any other questions in my personal DM, and I don't think either of you have any more questions. So with that, we can end the session. This has been really, really wonderful. Thank you so much, Shishu and Shireen, for not just giving a very comprehensive presentation, but also being so patient in taking all of the questions. And, we are way past the scheduled time, so thank you for staying on. And we're sure, I'm sure people who've attended found this helpful, but also people who will watch the recording will find this helpful as well. So thank you once again, and thank you everyone who joined us, and all the best with your applications.
Thank you, Misbah and everyone.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Shireen.
much.
Bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye, everyone.